Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our third panel here today on sales operations and enablement. I am joined by, again, some of my very good friends who are really experts in sales and particularly sales operations, tooling, enablement. We'll take a quick second to just remind folks, if you do have any questions for the panelists, go ahead and click on the Ask a Question button here at the bottom. If you have any problems with your audio, your feed or whatnot, there's a help button at the top, or you can just comment on the wall and submit your question that way as well. So it's just Crowdcast has that functionality, which is kind of neat because it actually bakes in the answer for folks if you want to come back and rewatch the answer. But why don't we take a quick second and just introduce ourselves. Cole, why don't you, Cole, I've known Cole for many years, Dan as well, but why don't you kick us off, Cole, and just kind of give us a quick background on your career and what you're up to these days.
Sure. Thanks for having me, George. I started out in Silicon Valley back in 2010, and I was one of the first SDRs at LinkedIn for their corporate solutions when they went from just selling subscriptions to their whole recruiter business. And so I really got to witness and take part of building that first kind of SDR engine. And I think the whole SDR thing was really getting going then. And it's obviously grown pretty big today. So that really got me addicted to tech and startups. And I joined several startups, both in the HR space, the technical coding space was kind of their first sales hire. So I had to do everything from sales ops to SDR to AE to becoming a sales manager. So it really gave me a rounded kind of education, if you will, in kind of the whole sales sphere, sales ops as well, of course. Worked for Lead IQ for a bit as they went from kind of their initial sales to their first kind of 7 figures in ARR, and got me even more steeped in kind of this whole great sales tool space. And then after that, I joined Sagemount, which Casey, I think, is on another session here. He's a colleague of mine who brought me there. And so had the privilege of working with some great companies in kind of the 15 million to 100 million ARR level and kind of enacting that playbook from a full stack of sales ops, et cetera. So that's where I continue to be at this day. And thanks again for having me. And hopefully I can contribute some knowledge to everybody here.
Awesome. Dan, my man, I mean, I love your tool. I don't want to plug it too much and sound salesy, and Dan did not pay me to say that. Dan, why don't you give us a quick intro on your background and what you're up to right now about with Troops, and what is Troops? Because I think it's such an innovative tool that people need to leverage. Of course, if you're on Slack, which everyone's on Slack these days.
Yeah, certainly. Hey guys, hey everyone. So my name is Dan Reich. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of a company called Troops, Troops.ai. And Troops is really building the central nervous system for revenue. And the way we do that is we bring all of your mission critical information and workflow from the tools that you use to run your company, whether it's Salesforce or HubSpot or Outreach or Zendesk or Marketo, literally anything in this stack. And we bring all of that mission critical information and workflow, and we put it in Slack or Microsoft Teams. And the reason we do that is we believe those new mediums to really we think about them as the operating systems for teams. It's really where people are gravitating towards that work. It's where they're spending all of their time, increasingly so with COVID, as you might expect, with everybody working from home. And so our view is that people shouldn't have to be logged into 40, 50 different tabs at all times to do their jobs, bopping around between database UIs with a bunch of fields, forms, buttons, and boxes. Instead, our view is we should be able to push really important and mission critical information to you in the place where you're doing work, and then just as easily and elegantly act on it. So an example might be if you are Cole, you mentioned a SDR role or an account executive role. If you just had a meeting, after that meeting, Troops could send you a notification and says, hey, Cole, I see you just had a meeting with a really big customer. Any notes or next steps you want to record? Or, hey, Mr. Account Manager, it looks like you have an upsell or a churn prevention opportunity, and so on and so on and so on. So that's Troops. Today we work with several hundred companies like Slack, Shopify, Snapchat, Twilio, Cameo, Andela, some really, really great and fast growing companies. And the reason I started Troops is because my background is rooted in, let's call it serial entrepreneurship. I've started maybe close to 15 or so companies at this point, most of which didn't work. A few have. The last software company I co-founded was a company called Spinback that helped online brands and retailers measure how much money they were making from Facebook. And we sold that to a company called Buddy Media, which we then sold to Salesforce, and have, like you guys, bopped around with a few other tech companies along the way. But that's Troops, and that's me.
Awesome. So first of all, 15. I know my number's 13. I started 13 ventures over the last 17 years, and so you do. I get it, and I'm surprised you still have your hair, because it's how stressful it is. But Dan, let's talk a little bit about just sort of what is the sales stack right now in 2020, 2021? What does it look like? There are 4,000 tools out there, and it's growing by the day. What are those key components of your sales stack? And Cole, we'll get to you after. I'd love to get your opinion on this, because you're setting this up every day for clients.
Yeah, certainly. So I could speak for Troops, and I could speak a little bit for some of our customers and themes. But I think categorically, every company we work with, ourselves included, we have a CRM, right? So we use Salesforce. We have a way to visualize data more easily across our business, including Salesforce. For us is Looker. We have a way to communicate, collaborate against all of that information. For us, it's Slack. For marketing, we use HubSpot. For SDR work, we use Outreach. And then we'll use a handful of, let's call it, data enriching tools and a few other things here and there. And I think what we've seen is the larger the organization, inherently, the more technology and tools they're using, right? They just have more people. And I think kind of as a meta point, what we're seeing is where the world is headed is a world where increasingly there's only going to be more SaaS and more pointed solutions. You think about even tools that help you literally schedule meetings, right? Like a Calendly, for example. So what we're seeing is increasingly all of our customers are using more, just a lot more stuff that need coordination and communication. At the core, everyone uses a CRM, but then again, as the company increases, or depending on the scope of the company, the tools and stack increases. And so, at Troops, we think there's a need to consolidate and aggregate those tools. But, everyone's using a slightly different version or flavor of the tried and true buckets. Mm-hmm. CRM, Outreach, Analytics, Marketing Automation, Customer Success Management, Renewal Management, et cetera, et cetera. It's just the tools may be different depending on preference.
Cole, what are you seeing? And I know this is one of your main sort of tasks, is helping organizations get their sales stack really set up. What are you seeing out there as sort of this latest? I know there was a question here posted by Mr. Casey Kerr. What are these best new sales operations tools, which maybe we'll just roll up into the sales stack?
Yeah, well, I want to make sure I'm speaking to the audience with what they're looking for. I'm assuming it's probably a mix of folks maybe just starting out in startups. Maybe they're looking for the basics, but I'm sure there's probably some folks that are maybe more sophisticated on their curve or their journey in their company. So I'll try and speak as generally as possible. I think Dan hit most of the main kind of essentials of the sales stack. And, if you're really trying to scale up, I think, yeah, you got to have those. What we're seeing, and we implement pretty much all those at our portfolio companies today. I'd say kind of the next level, if I can start speaking broadly, we're in 2020. It's a different year, right? To remote selling. I think a big piece of the sales stack is, things like the recording solutions, the enablement solutions, right? Everybody's got Zoom. They're using Zoom as their main sales communication tool to their customers. And so I think really doubling down around your Zoom strategy, how you show up to a meeting. We're going to start creating kind of a playbook of how people should show up on a discovery call and a demo. And we are watching that like hawks on like Chorus or Gong or whatever recording solution, and making sure we have a playbook of salespeople showing up perfectly to every meeting. It's not just about their script, it's how they show up, how they come across, because that's the only medium we have now, at least for the foreseeable future. So I think part of your sales stack is remote selling and really mastering that, because that's going to make the difference in conversion ratios by a long shot. So having the Zoom and either Chorus, we do Chorus and Exec Vision in our portfolio. We haven't really tried out Gong too much, but any of those solutions, you're gonna, I think just making sure that that piece of enablement. Now, enablement's a huge subject, and there's tons of software and sales ops tools within the enablement category. I would say Dan's company probably touches that, and we'll probably continue to touch more of that. But if I were to just narrow in on a couple of quick tips for the audience here, have a really solid playbook in how your salespeople are showing up using Zoom and like an Exec Vision. I think that'll be huge for 2020 and beyond.
And when you talk about playbooks, I know a lot of people sort of these can kind of look different. Dan, what are you seeing in terms of solid playbooks that people actually use? Because I put playbooks together for teams, I send it over, and then people are asking me 2 weeks later the stuff that they should have known already, right?
Right. Oh, was that a question for Dan or both of us?
Well, maybe for both of us, but Dan, maybe you can kick it off, and then.
Yeah, certainly. So I think even years ago before COVID, right? The way playbooks would have worked at an organization before this craziness is you'd huddle as a sales team. You'd come up with some plays you want to run our playbook. You'd go run it, and then you'd have either your daily stand-ups or your weekly stand-ups or your one-on-ones to review the pipeline or review how some customer calls went and so on. That's a lot harder now, just given the nature of the world that we live in. And moreover, not only is it harder, but especially the past couple months, the world was changing, and still is to a degree, so fast that people really needed to adapt and be agile more than ever, right? I have friends that have companies that their business seemingly was about to go to zero overnight, travel, hospitality, retail, and they had to reinvent themselves and subsequently had to reinvent their go-to-market and sales playbooks. And so how do you do that? And so one of the things that I think COVID has done is it really forces you to think about, to your point, what is your playbook and what are you focused on? But more importantly, how do you know the thing you're focusing on is working? How do you know you're hitting on the right comments or themes in a sales meeting? How do you know you're capturing the right data or asking the right questions in a sales meeting? And Cole mentioned, and we've used Chorus and Gong, these recording tools, which are great. But in that example, it's also really hard to listen to every single sales call. It's just really tough. And so I don't want to make this a Troops commercial, but one of the things we've realized.
Go for it, man. It does add value. So
yeah. It's like one of the things we've realized is that in order to run the best playbook, you need to provide really great micro coaching moments for the team. And so an example that we use at Troops is we use MEDDIC as a sales methodology to ensure that we're capturing key data points like metrics, economic buyer, decision maker, and so forth. And so what we'll do at Troops is we have signals that pump into Slack and to me as an executive and to our executive team that will share those insights. Like a rep will just finish a call with, let's say, Coca-Cola, and in Slack I can see who the economic buyer is, who the decision maker is, what's the key pain point that they're trying to solve or business problem. And then I'll also see in cases fields that are empty, right? Like this is the classic, my CRM data is messy issue. And in those cases where it's empty, it provides me a really easy moment to drop in Slack in a very lightweight and easy manner and say, hey, Mr. or Miss Rep, tell me more about this data point. Why is this a pain for them? Or maybe why didn't you have this piece of information filled out? And really quickly and elegantly, we're able to have a quick conversation around that part of the play in Slack versus waiting a week to do these meetings, because by that time there's new information or meetings have occurred. And so in short, the way we think about running plays is all the meetings we have, we think through the lens of MEDDIC so that we're capturing the right information. And the way the teams action those plays are to ensure we're capturing and inspecting those key pieces of data. And the way we're able to do that is vis-a-vis Troops in Slack to ensure that the data is there. And if it's not, understanding why and what other blockers might exist.
Cole, I know you have been doing some pretty innovative stuff around prioritizing and understanding call data, because to Dan's point, you just can't listen to every call. What's your take on kind of this, this playbook issue and how to really be able to prioritize and understand what's working today?
Yeah, and by the way, Dan, kudos to you guys, all the stuff you built. I remember when Troops was just getting started, and I used it as like just the Salesforce Slack app, and just would post the wins to the channel, and that was super valuable. It sounds like you guys have walked 1,000 miles between then and now, so that's awesome. But anyway, yeah, to your question, George. Yeah, I think the playbook, there's some great templates out there that apply to the 80-20% of sales teams, like the medic, or, if you're more low level or transactional, like a BANT. I think it's good to at least start with those frameworks at the minimum. And I think as you evolve, and maybe this is, if there's some startup CEOs on this call, or if there's some VPs of sales, like there's always that secret sauce you want to build in there, right? And you want to iterate that as you start to see gaps, or double down. Like if your team's having problems with their pitch, right? Like add the P in there and make sure you're coaching on that to fill out that gap. It's always a rolling challenge, right? It's the whack-a-mole, and there may be certain folks on your sales team that have harder problems, or have more challenges in those areas than others. And so I think it's good to create a framework that's a little bit flexible. And these tools like Gong, Chorus, ExecVision, they have some AI built in, where you can see some of that coaching, insights come up with transcription. I think that technology is still developing more. And so, what we've done, we were kind of early adopters at Sagemount, where we said, we're just going to score every call. We're going to hire contractors to just listen through to every single call. We actually do that today still, because we just believe the perfect call every time, and delivering those fully fledged data-driven insights from coaching, creates a lot of value from a sales team perspective. And like Dan mentioned, nobody has time to listen to all these calls. So whether you're using a tool like Troops, or using some of the features built into some of these recording tools, I actually would say, from what I've seen personally, ExecVision has the most robust coaching capabilities within a recording solution. And you can create whole plans around coaching and insights. But even if you're not using that, I think you've just got to, look for insights and make sure you're kind of keeping yourself disciplined as a manager, to watching those and spot checking calls on your team, and sticking with that framework that you've developed with the team. And you can do easy things like, hey, I'm going to spot check 5 calls per rep this month, and if you have 3 perfect calls, you're going to get $300, right? And so simple things like that around just call coaching incentives can create a lot of value and synergy for your team.
Awesome. Well, we have about 4 minutes left, so I want to make sure if anyone has any questions outside of Casey Kerr in the audience, this is the time to submit it. There was we all know Jake Dunlap over at Scaled, and he's active influencer in sales tech and the community, and they did a research recently on some of the issues that leaders are having, and it turns out that one of the biggest issues sales leaders are having is getting their reps to actually use the tools properly and integrated into their managers and reps workflow. Dan, I know this is probably something that you folks have done a great job of at Troops, particularly because what you were doing is so innovative. So adoption, is always a topic. Any tips to these, to the leaders out there that are watching around not only just buying these tools, but making sure everyone's onboarded, trained, and use it consistently?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see Rob's question, and I'll touch on it because I think it's related. I mean, I lived through this at Salesforce, and even in the earliest customer conversations at Troops, I would see this everywhere, in every conversation. And the general theme and feedback I've seen was sales managers and salespeople often feel like data monkeys or babysitters, right? That have to update stuff for updating its sake. And that totally misses the point. And take forecasts, for example. When I was at Salesforce, I had to report my forecasts weekly to my manager. And so what I would literally do is walk to each person's cube and poke them. Hey, what's going on with this deal? What's going on with this deal? What's going on with this deal? Because I knew half of them did update Salesforce and half of them then did not. And by the way, the half that did, I didn't know if that was right or wrong, period, because I didn't have trust in the whole data set itself, which manifested into two-hour meetings twice a week, going account by account by account, trying to figure out what was going on and why, so we can arrive at a better forecast. And it was insane. And so what I ended up doing was I'd see people would have meetings with accounts, and I would literally hit them up over text. Hey, Helene, how'd your meeting with Under Armour go? Oh, meeting went great. Awesome. What's the budget? Who's the decision maker? What are next steps? And we'd have this whole conversation, and then at the end of the week, have our pizza party to just transpose all of those conversations back into Salesforce. And we found that to be crazy. And so in short, the way we think about solving forecasts, or really all of these mission critical business processes, is simple. Put those processes where your people are working and want to work. And in our view, that's Slack. And so now for forecasting, Rob, what we do is we have an automated signal that goes out to our sales team, and our customers do this as well, whether it's Twilio or Slack or Snapchat. And we'll get a message that says this: hey, Cole, I see that you have these 30 deals that you said are going to close in the next 25 days. Are they? And with a quick click of a button, they could update their pipeline in seconds in a medium they're already spending their time in, which updates the back-end database, which rolls into the forecast reports that roll up to the executive team and board, et cetera, et cetera. And so in short, the way we solve forecasting or coaching or inspection or whatever is put that where your people are working. And increasingly, we think that's going to look more like Slack, more like Microsoft Teams, more like Zooms. And the companies that adopt that mindset, instead of forcing them to work in these 40 different bespoke and painful systems that are also not speaking to one another, the companies that do that will win.
Cole, any ideas around this particular topic?
Well, Dan's technology is really the front and center for 2020. We've got to be more communicative. We've got to people get motivated by looking at these communication tools like Slack and having insights delivered in there. It motivates the heck out of them. If I can answer Rob's question in a different way,
Sure.
Yes, there are forecasting tools out there. You've got the Cadillacs of analytics, like Insight Squared. You can do fancy stuff, but not knowing where Rob's coming from. If you're just starting out, right? Like if you're using Salesforce, right? Like just have your team. You can create automations in Salesforce around just a simple report, right? Have that forecast, and Dan. I think Dan had a good point about the adoption and lazy salespeople filling out the right stuff and having reminders. Again, I think Slack is a great place to kind of bring that kind of bowl of catch-all. So whether you've just got to create a system of data hygiene and the right reports and keep it simple, and then you've got forecasting, right? So it's just a matter of creating that feedback loop and that behavior. But you can get fancy. There are plenty of off-the-shelf solutions out there to buy that can start to automate or start to show you those data gaps. But I would just start with reports in Salesforce and just make sure you're tapping your team on the shoulder and making it easy to see where there's gaps.
Well, we're up on time here. Just one quick question, if you in a couple words, because this has come up a couple times. What are the best ways to be able to ensure that you're tracking attribution and that attribution data is actually accurate, right? Because it's got to go through many phases of the funnel and different systems. Cole, maybe we'll start off with you and wrap up with Dan.
So you're talking about attributing lead sources.
Yeah,
basically.
just making exactly it cross channels, exactly making sure that because marketing now is really being uh, graded on how much revenue they're really generating, and not just, hey, we generated these many leads.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's some tools out there like Visible, among others, that are, attribution software. So you can buy some off the shelf solutions. We have some, we'll invest in a company that's 20 years old, and they've gone through like 5 different Salesforce iterations and 3 different sales ops people, and you end up having to create like 3 different fields for attribution, and then you have to kind of cross-reference that. Now, if you're just starting out, it's I think it's going to be a little easier, for obvious reasons, but it's important to know where you're getting success from, obviously. So I think it's good to put, kind of larger scale lead sources, and then maybe smaller scale or more finite lead sources. So, I've seen it where you'll actually start with 2, maybe 3 fields of like what the lead source should be or what it is. And then you can start to kind of categorize and categorically track where you're getting the money from. I think it's important to know, where, once you start getting into renewals and, new leads coming in that are your accounts, you're going to have to track that as well. So I think it's just important to think through the whole customer life cycle, because eventually in a year, 2 years, 3 years, you have that same customer, you have another customer come back around, you're going to have to update that lead field again, right? And then you're going to want to attribute, well, where do they come from now? So it's just good to plan ahead. You should set history tracking. You want to have historical snapshots in your CRM of, where things are coming from or what things looked like at a certain, point in time as well. So hopefully that's helpful.
Awesome. Well, we're out of time now, Dan. Anything else that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say ask your customers. So when you sign or might be close to signing a customer, literally ask them, hey, how'd you hear about us? Where'd you find us? There's 5 other ways you could, as Cole mentioned a few of them, that you could improve this part of the motion, but I think you're going to get a really straight answer if you just ask people where they came from.
Awesome. Cole, Dan, super busy people, I know. Thank you so much for taking the time. If you could, maybe just post a link to a channel like LinkedIn or Twitter or whatnot, if folks want to get in contact with you, maybe learn more about your services. For everyone else in the audience, thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and transition to the sales and marketing alignment session, which is session number 4. You can go up to the schedule up on the top, and then click on that schedule, and on that link rather, and you'll be able to enter that session room. I'm also going to post the link to that session in the chat. So thank you so much, everyone, and have a wonderful day. In the audience, we'll see you in the next session.
Thanks so much. Take care.